Hi, today I'm gonna change the fuel pump in the Monaco, and for that I need a Monaco, I need some of this cleaning stuff, which you'll see why in a minute, some 3/8 fuel hose, and a fuel pump. So this car has the 318 V8, the 5.2. Get to the fuel pump from underneath, they say. That's the front wheel. Get to the fuel pump. Get to the fuel pump. Get to it from underneath. Don't get to it from underneath. So if you remove the alternator, that is a bolt right there, and it's got a nut on the end of it there, and that is whatever this size is in American, 9/16. There's an adjuster bolt right there. And then you can unplug that, take that whole thing out. All right, so the adjuster is half, which is 13mm for the rest of the world, but in America you have to have this standard stuff still. I don't know why. Weird thing is your best-selling vehicle, which is the Toyota RAV4, is metric. And also, the best-selling pickup truck in America, Ford F-150, is metric. Anyway, undo this adjuster. You'll see this is starting to dip as I undo it. And then we'll undo this big sucker across here, which you probably can't really see that well from up there. So let's see if you can see it. This. So that's the half where my little finger is moving. And as you see, that's the adjuster. So you can get these belts tight. And as I let go of it, you see the adjuster's loose now. So it will just sag to that point. And then there's this, what was it I said, 9/16. This big through bolt. You see it pivots on this. And then there's a bolt on the other end. I think it's 9/16. Yeah, it is. Which is what, 14 or 15mm in the real world. Also, before you take the alternator off, remember where your belts go, which groove they sit in when they go under, where they hit down there, and how they come back around. If you're like me, just take a photograph of it and then you'll have a reference. And if you get it wrong, then I can't help you. So alternator's out and just resting there for now. And look, there's the fuel pump getting it from underneath. Goodness, there it is. I've already taken the liberty of scratching a ton of grease and grime and oil that was leaking out of this valve cover. This whole area was caked and wasn't very nice. So I scraped, for the most part, scraped it off with a like a putty knife, and then I used that simple green, jetted this stuff all over that area, and as you can see, it's actually cleaned it up pretty nicely. And I can get to those two bolts, and to take this out, it's just that and that. I've got to figure out what strange sizing that is. I had those two grubby old bolts are 9/16, so we take those two out. I'm not going to try and do it one-handed. You know, when you're working on these cars, especially if they've been sat outside for a long period of time, just go around it with like a flame torch or something. Spider the size of a dog just kind of came out and said hi to me, and I don't like those. All right, so we've got those two bolts out. Remember, there's a gasket right here. So when you put the new one on, this surface right here has got to be super clean. And also, there's a soft line. So there's a hard line that comes off the bottom of the pump, and then it stops around about here. Then there's a soft line from there. So you've got to undo this soft line. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so this doesn't come out unless we take the mount for the alternator out of the way. So 9/16 bolt there, but there's also one, so you follow this along here, there, but don't undo that one lots, because that holds the water pump in place and coolant will start coming out. So just loosen that tiny bit. We'll take that off and then we'll bend this up out of the way. We'll be able to get that out, because see, it's that bit there's in the way. And we finally got it out, but there's one more thing, just where my finger is there. That's the line that comes from the tank. It's just on there with a clamp. Just pop that off. It might get a bit smelly if you're leaking fuel. Luckily for me, I ran out of fuel in this yesterday, so I'm dealing with a relatively dry system. So that's the last thing to come off right there. All right, finally got the pump out. That's the old one. That was the line in from the tank. I ended up just cutting that because I'm going to replace that anyway. And I would say go in and inspect your line from the tank. It'll be steel for the most part of the car, and then, you know, as it gets nearer to the bendy part, it will turn into a rubber one like this. So inspect that, and then this has to come off, and we need to keep this metal piece up to here. We need that. The new pump doesn't come with that. So you undo this, keep this, shove it on there. There's a little bit of a difference in those rods, but other than that, that's the part number. And I bought the Carter one because Carter made the original ones, I think. All right, and here it is, all ready to go back in. So what I did do, and I don't know if this is what you should do, but I'm gonna do it. I got some of this stuff. See, it says fuel resistant. It's this sort of blue gasket maker. I stuck this one to it with some of that blue stuff. And also I put a little bit in the threads of here, of this hard line, when I crank that up, because I've always had the misfortune of stuff leaking out through the threads, whether it be oil or fuel or whatever. So I've just done that. There's the nasty old one, and there's the nice new one. And what we have to do is get in here. So this is the line from the tank, and I mean it's kind of brittle and not the best, so I'm gonna have to get under here and take a quick gander at that and see WTF. Okay, so I inspected that line from the tank. There's a metal line comes almost all the way up to here somewhere, and then from there's a short rubber line, and that metal line looks pretty good. The rubber line obviously I'm going to get rid of, but in undoing all of that stuff, I took the line off the carb, drained what fuel was in the line into a water bottle. That's not good. So this little beauty fuel filter, that needs to be redone. And I think what I'm gonna do, you don't have to do this just for a fuel pump, but I'm gonna do it myself anyway, is to drop the tank and clean the tank out, flush the lines through. I might even put a new fuel line in, metal fuel line, we'll see. But that's what I discovered. Anyway, back to putting the fuel pump back in. Hello, on the way back from work today, I stopped off and got a new fuel filter. It's definitely worth changing this if you're changing out a pump. I went cheap and got it from Auto Moan. It's like $9. And also these gloves. I think some people think that if you wear these like latex gloves, it's because you think you're all good at mechanics. I'm a full beginner. It's just that my wife won't let me touch her if I come near her with gummy hands. So the first port of call today, rather than just putting the fuel pump straight back in, is I've got to get, so let's see. This is obviously the 318 LA. I don't know what LA means, but that's what it is. So down here, down this gap, just to the side of the exhaust manifolds, pull this flap back, and then right there, let's see, right there, this is the hard line from the tank, and that's the soft line from it. So you can see there's not much space. I got to get in there and take that off, put some new fuel line on there somehow, not quite sure how. And literally 45 minutes later, I finally managed to get the soft line off of this line from the tank. That was horrible. Can't help you with that, you just have to become a contortionist. New fuel line. That's got some of that gasket maker on, and the two bolts have got some gasket maker on. Let's put it in. Alright, it's been a real fiddle actually doing this properly, but that's the soft line. It comes all the way down, goes up into the pump, and then that metal line comes out of the pump, comes all the way up here, and I've got my new fuel filter under there for now, and the line comes up, goes around there and into the carb, all tied up. Just gotta put the alternator back on now. I'm gonna put the alternator back on just the same way as we took it off. Well, opposite the way we took it off. And then put some fuel in this car, see if it cranks and starts, and check for some fuel leaks, and then call it good. First of all, just gonna throw a little bit of fuel down its gullet, just to give it a little bit of something to start drawing everything from the tank. So let's see what that does. Alright, sitting here idling pretty nice. It'll need another tune, that's for sure. But for the most part, I'd say that was a win.